Okay, hello folks, it's a little bit after 7, so we will take this meeting to order. Tonight is a public hearing on proposed warrant for the 2025 town meeting. They're fairly straightforward. People have copies. We've already have enough copies for everybody.
And you said there were copies available.
Yeah, we don't listen to it. Sorry.
You should know that by now.
Okay, there are a couple packages. One is it's titled 2025 zoning board articles. This is what will be on the ballot. And then there's another one called 2025 zoning board articles as well. But I guess one is printed in landscape, one is printed in a portrait. This is, sorry. Okay, still one is landscape and one is, right. So the articles we see in the landscape one are the ballot articles, and they refer to the pages that are in portrait. There'll be some numbers in red to the left of the article, and that will refer you to the page number of the warrant. How do I say this? The stuff in portrait. The stuff in portrait is actually what our zoning ordinance looks like. We've only printed the pages that are affected by these ballot articles. Article 2. Are you in favor of the adoption of amendment number one, as proposed by the Canterbury Planning Board for the Town of Canterbury zoning ordinance as follows? Let me talk to the second about numbering. Who knows what article? This is Article 2. What is Article 1 going to be at the town meeting? It's always the same thing. So this is the budget. Article 1 is the budget. So we start with Article 2. Now, our Article 2 refers to our Amendment 1. And our Amendment 1 is about Article 5.3 in the zoning ordinance. So I know it's terribly confusing, but we need to try to help people understand it. And that's why I put these page numbers here, so that it would be easier for people to reference across. So we're trying to amend Article 5.3 in Section C, the table of principal uses in zoning ordinance as follows. To correct the omission in the table of uses of the Farmstead Alternative by conditional use permit in the rural zone, the residential zone, the Center Historic District zone, and the Shaker Village Museum Preservation District. This, the Farmstead Alternative passed at last year's town meeting, and in that article it said that these zones are where it would be allowed. It was never included in the edit of the zoning ordinance. So what we're doing is including it in the table of uses where it's supposed to be. Questions from anybody? Comments from the board? I should introduce Matt Monahan here from Central New Hampshire Regional Planning, who is very helpful to us on figuring out how an Article 2 refers to an Amendment 1, for example. But also a lot of legal language. He works a lot with a number of town zoning, planning boards and zoning boards, both in the administration and in the creation, amending of ordinances. So back to this amendment of Article 5.1, putting the Farmstead Alternative by conditional use in the rural zone, residential zone, Center Historic District zone, and the Shaker Village Museum Preservation District. If you flip to your page 29, you can see what that looks like in the table of uses. Questions, comments?
So just to clarify, Randy Johnson, Moore Road. Okay, so we're taking the first one to correct omission in the table of uses of the Farmstead Alternative. I go to page 29 of here. It's the last one on the list. Rural zone, residential zone. So like what changed? Because like when I look at this one, it says like the word allow was deleted. So what's changing from here to here? I don't understand.
It wasn't in the table of uses. It wasn't included in the table of uses in the last version.
Okay.
So it says it was deleted.
What was deleted
On
were the
page
dash lines. So if you see the word deleted,
Not language?
then it tells you what is deleted, and what was deleted is the dash lines. In other words, the letter CU were not printed on the table of uses. They're in blue. And what was deleted was that little dash line after the word deleted in the ends. Understand now?
Couldn't someone
I mean,
just accept the track changes before?
It's not language that we're talking about. You're talking about a dash or a period or a comma.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's, all right, so Matt, I think we want to vote on these individually, correct?
Yeah, you could, and the procedure would just be to, so when you make a motion for anything, you want to make it in the positive, right? So make a motion to approve, and I approve something, and then if everybody goes forward, it passes, and so on. So I think what you would do is you would make a motion to move it to town meeting. So whatever items you guys clear off the list, and, go from there.
And I refer to it as Article 2 or as Amendment Number 1.
You could also do, you guys could also do it at the end, and just do one shot. Do everything in one shot, or you can take them one at a time, whatever you guys.
In the past, it's worked better to do them one at a time, so that we get bogged down on one and never remember where we were.
Gotcha. Yeah, so for that, let me go back to the ballot language. You could say Article 2, could I have a motion to move Article 2, Amendment Number 1, as previously read, to town meeting? And then try to take it from there. But I just add one bit of clarity. So on that last conversation that we were just having, so the ordinance passed last year and it describes it in a narrative type form, but it was just omitted from the table of uses, so it should match up. So
It was in the ballot.
All right, so I have one more question. I'm sorry, this is the last one, I apologize. All right, so I get it. So you're adding the farm stand to this table, it wasn't there before.
Mhm.
So it says here that it's in the rural zone, the residential zone, the center historic zone, and the Shaker Village. But on the table, it looks like it's got agriculture, whatever I did, no, it doesn't have I,
You're
special
looking at
exception.
farm stand and not farmstead.
Oh, I'm sorry, where does it say Farmstead?
The bottom of the top, start at the top.
Oh, okay.
It's under the cluster development.
All right, thank you, sorry. All right, so it's all conditional use.
yeah.
Thank you. There was a lot of deleted, so when we talk about, I thought it was this one. It's very confusing.
That's something too.
But you did,
Randy, you did point out.
you did point out an error here.
I didn't do that on purpose.
So on the
You own
table of uses, the Farmstead Alternative is shown as conditional use in the agricultural zone. That was something we had discussed at different times. It was not something that the board decided to move forward with. So that is incorrect. Can you fix that for us, Matt? That's, you're doing on the spot editing for us.
So for that, you would just say as amended. So.
Right, so.
Well, it's not amended.
Well,
It's corrected.
as corrected. Yeah, so you would just cite the change made to that.
Because you did it, you took it off the table.
Yeah,
That's the
so,
only thing that.
so we're cutting it from the ag zone, the first one, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Sounds like you have your mind wrapped around how to make this motion, Rich. Would you prepare to do that for us?
A motion Article 2, Amendment number 1, the first section regarding Farmstead Alternative be accepted.
I'll second that. Do we have to say as corrected or not?
As corrected in the zoning pages. Yes.
In the table of uses.
Table of uses, thank you.
Second. Further discussion? We'll call the vote. All those in favor? Aye. So that's unanimous amongst us. All right, we'll move on to the next one, which is on page 30. If you want to look down. To clarify, the convenience stores may include gas pumps and diesel pumps by special exception, except in the aquifer protection overlay. There were two things going on here. One, there was a typo, so it didn't say gas, it said something else. Do you remember what it said? What?
Have H-A-D.
It said half instead of gas, and it didn't say diesel, and so we thought that it should be clear that there's going to be a gas station that should be able to have diesel pumps as well as gas pumps. And so it didn't change. It was allowed by special exception in the same zones. There's no change in that. We did add except in the aquifer protection overlay, because in the aquifer protection section of the zoning ordinance, it says you cannot have gas and diesel pumps. So we're trying to bring the two parts of the ordinance.
Which was already down there, those people at that abandoned gas station, they were already abiding by those requirements. And so in other words, you can't put a tank.
We should clarify this, because this doesn't say under, because it's the underground tanks that are prohibited.
And they were trying to, this summer, they were trying to go down there and do some work.
No, they got approved, they're full go, they can start work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, under the technical definition of abandonment, they didn't qualify because of their pursuit of permit permits over.
The period.
Yeah.
So they're going to be allowed to have them underground.
Yeah, they're gonna
Yeah.
go.
But Matt, we should, in order to make this in alignment with the aquifer protection, it should say except for underground storage tanks in the aquifer protection overlay.
Except for.
I like this, you're already addressing my question.
All right, so I think we're looking for,
A motion, Article 2.
I think there's a question.
Oh,
Doesn't
sorry,
the state of New Hampshire regulate if a gas pump can go in the ground or not?
They do.
So is the town trying to oversee the state of New Hampshire by this aquifer protection overlay?
the aquifer protection overlay was done 8-10 years ago, and it's the state does not have a regulation saying you cannot have them in an aquifer protection zone. The local law can be more restrictive than the state law, and so at the time this was proposed and passed by the town, that's what was proposed as a warrant article, and that was what was passed and what is in the ordinance.
So why would a convenience store need a special exemption from the planning board? I'm assuming that's what this is stating.
It would be, it should be from the zoning board.
The zoning board?
Yes,
Yeah.
special exception comes from the zoning board.
All right. Perfect. Thank you.
So we have a motion.
Motion Article 2, Amendment 1, the second part regarding the convenience stores be approved.
As amended.
As amended.
I'll second that. Thank you, John. Further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Next section, and that's on page 30 again. To allow commercial EV charging stations in the commercial zone and the industrial zone by right, and to permit them by special exception in the Center Historic District Zone and in the Shaker Village Museum zones. So the idea about about special exception in the Central Historic District and the Shaker Village Museum is then the zoning board and the community can have input on where they go and say, no, you can't have it in front of the meeting house at Shaker Village, and you can't have it in front of the church here. You got to cite it appropriately, basically. Questions?
I have a question.
Yep.
Do you want to go first?
Well, what constitutes a commercial charging station versus a residential? Is it a number or is it a size?
No, it's, when there's a definition, you'll come up to the definition. It's one that it's like a charge point one where you go and you put in your credit card and it's
It's like that liquor store down exit 17 where you go
Or
in
the Tesla charge.
swipe your card to be
Okay.
able to.
I don't know if it's restrict, for instance, if you had a charging station at your house, where you are on Shaker
no,
Road.
commercial.
Commercial only, okay.
So if you look at the bottom, Article 3, it's right at the bottom there. It's on the draft plan. The definition.
Let's,
Yeah.
let's keep moving in order. So that
My question's quick.
yeah,
What's the difference between the Shaker Village Museum Preservation District and the Shaker Village Museum Zone?
no.
Okay.
The museum zone is not properly worded. It's the, do you know which one is the exact proper wording for that?
Not off the top of my head.
I can find it out.
I think there's two separate zones up here, that's what's happening.
Yeah, there are, but in the table of uses, it's SVMPD, Shaker Village Museum Preservation Zone District, something like that.
So just, so you know, when I read this, I thought the museum zone would be like the museum store and the parking lot, and the
No.
preservation district would be across the street.
So all of that land is under one zone in our table of uses. There are different parts of it that are controlled by different easements that allow different things to happen on them. For example, probably, I'm not that familiar with those easements with the historic, state historic and federal easements too, but I'm sure there are places where they can't put a charging station, but there are some areas that are reserved for, like where they have their septic field, so they can put in amenities and things like that. Yes, sir.
I'm just curious why you would not just leave the commercial EV charging stations in the commercial zone. What is the reasoning behind this warrant article to have a special exception for the historic district in Shaker Village?
That's what I was saying, so that we don't, so that the zoning board can say, yeah, we think it's a great idea, but you can't put it in front of the church. You gotta put it somewhere, you gotta put it in the back.
But why even have it there is my question. What's the reasoning behind it?
The head center, the Historic District Commission is gonna have a say, but that's probably why. Right? They run on their own thing, that's this district and the Shaker Village.
They have solar array up there, or they're planning
No,
on it?
these aren't solar arrays, these are charging stations, is what we're talking about here, right?
But how are those charging stations? Kind of, there's more to it. Kind of get what I'm talking about. To have a charging station, you don't just put a stick in the ground, like the charging stations over at exit 17, diesel generators in Market Basket. So when you guys talk about a charging station, what's going to supply the power to that charging station? That's my question. Why does it just keep it limited in the commercial area? There's
So that,
It's addressing it so the HDC has some legs to stand on when they look on it and say, how is this allowed or not allowed in this district?
so,
We had guests from out of town, check it out the store, check it out the village.
So you want to put electric vehicle charging stations in the center of town in historic districts?
That's.
we're not saying that, we're saying We'll talk about it.
You're saying, no, you are kind of saying, you're saying that somebody could try and do that if they had a special exception from you, but there's more to it. What I'm saying is why even allow it? Do not allow it at all. That's what I'm saying. No special exception, nothing. Only allow it in the commercial areas. Electric vehicle charging stations.
We are allowing it in the commercial and industrial areas.
Perfect, leave it at that, that's what I'm saying.
So well, this is what the board decided to present, and there was a lot of input from community power and the energy committee. So that's why this is that's how this got to us. And we're not talking about a band of 10 chargers, we're talking about 1 or 2, I think.
Yeah, and I don't think they'll even be commercial, yes. They'll just be plus. Right?
Well, there has to be that thought put into the process of what's going to charge this
Well, you have
station.
3 things coming through here, but, that's, whoever's putting it in is gonna have to sort out how they're gonna power it. All right, so,
Should we take and amend Trinker Village Museum Zone to Trinker Village Museum Protection District?
yes, you should. Can you get,
See that again?
so we talked,
So align it with the table of contents, that far right hand column, the SVMPD.
SVMPD.
in the table of uses, the far right column is SVMPD.
Yep.
All right, so in the ballot, we want to refer to it also as SVMPD,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
right?
Abbreviation. Yeah. Yeah, I think that probably makes sense to do that on every single thing, so what I'll do tomorrow, I'll just spin through and do it all.
So we're motion.
Right, motion Article 2, Amendment number 1, third section, having to do with commercial EV charging stations, be approved as amended.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Moving on, Article 2, Amendment 1, fourth section, to permit commercial solar in the commercial and industrial zones. And there is a definition of commercial solar that will be coming up to on the next page. So there was some discussion about whether they should just be allowed or whether by special exception. I think the advice from Central Regional Planning was when you're just starting out with something new, that it's probably smarter to do it by special exception, so that you have the ability to put in controls for things you haven't expected or predicted. So, comments, questions?
So, Greg, I just noticed something. The definition says commercial solar field. So I just want to make sure it's the
Yes,
same.
we should change, we should make it say solar. They should match, yes.
Yeah, so everything says commercial solar except for the definition which says commercial solar field. So my suggestion, just take the word field off.
Okay.
Just about the definition.
Yes. Just a little background. We had, again, this was, came to us through community power and the community energy people. There was talk about trying to include battery storage, because for a truly viable commercial solar, that battery is really a primary issue. It was determined that sorting out the safety and infrastructure impacts of batteries in the short amount of time we had before this town meeting was not something that was going to be feasible. So we have added, trying to add batteries and a solar overlay, which would follow the three-phase power lines in Canterbury, and probably include, well, we're already including 106 because we say commercial industrial. So there's some interest in moving further with this for the 2026 town meeting warrant articles. All I'm trying to say. So we're looking for a.
Yes. I have just a question. When we're talking about commercial solar, why wouldn't you potentially include it in agricultural as well? Only for the fact that there's 3 phases of Hackaboro Orchard, would that be a limiting factor to farms that are trying to produce solar and maybe, I don't know if you can harvest it per se, but.
Yeah, that's why we were talking about having the solar overlay. It would fall under three-phase power going up to Hackaboro.
So that would supersede commercial industrial if it was in the 3 phases.
That would be in addition to.
We'll cover whatever zone the overlay.
In addition to, for exactly that reason, some place like Hackaboro Orchard that has a lot of property could use usage of solar field income to help sustain an agriculture endeavor. The town says over and over that they value and want to keep that thing going here. So yes. So we're looking for a motion. Any motion made tonight, please? Yes,
So I motion in Article 2, Amendment number 1, the fourth part pertaining to commercial solar be approved. Do I have to go back to that?
as amended, because we amended,
Because we amended the definition.
Oh, we didn't get to the definition yet, right?
right.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you just amended,
yeah, so you would be just moving this one to,
reapproved.
move to that meeting.
That's how we.
A second.
Also, good.
Further discussion?
I just had a question. Well, not on this topic, I can wait.
Okay.
More on batteries.
Okay,
So
so
it's not on today's agenda. We're not there.
let's take a vote on
That's
this.
later.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Greg, can I just point something out? This, I think, is all going to be happening on voting day. So the first part's going to be voting, this will be on the ballot that day.
Correct.
But it's not going to be done at town meeting.
That's correct.
Okay, just, I heard people talking about town meeting, it's not going to happen at town meeting. This will be the Tuesday before.
You're right, because that's confusing all the time, isn't it? People talk about it.
Yeah.
It's called, any
You're
clarification
gonna see
on
this
that?
little-
Well, isn't it, so, it's confusing, but isn't part 1 of the town meeting on voting day?
Right, yes.
So technically it is town meeting, it's just part 1. It's confusing. It's clear as mud.
Okay, moving on. And at the end, we'll try to come back to your battery question. To permit data storage centers in the industrial district by special exception. I'll give you a little background here. There was a lot of discussion about saying there should be none at all. The board eventually came to the recommendation to allow them in the industrial district only by special exception only. Questions, comments?
I motion Article 2, Amendment number 1, the 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth part pertaining to data storage centers be approved.
Looking for a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ken. Further discussion? Yes.
Your definition of data storage center.
That's, we have a whole alternate data storage set definition.
But you guys talked about that Tuesday night. Why don't we have the correct information in our hands right now about the updated definition?
I have it for you right here.
I mean, everybody should have it.
Oh, this is the high technology.
It is.
Oh, my mistake. I sincerely apologize. I'm calm, Rich.
You're good. Oh, you were born with that.
I was looking at this documentation.
Okay,
that was
let's
sent
try to
out.
stick
It could have been
with
changed
the
here.
agenda, please. Can you please stick with the agenda? Did we get a motion on this? Yes, we did. Did we get a second?
Yes.
Yes.
I have a question, I'm so sorry.
Yep. Go ahead.
So, the high-tech note, like, this went from like a room or a building to a canvas. Like, this is
So,
a
we're
lot.
not talking about the definition right now.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Sorry,
that's-
I'm talking.
We're talking about the data storage centers by special exception in the industrial district. And we have a motion, we have a second, further discussion. So, let's take a vote, all those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Next one. To indicate as footnote number 1 to the table of principal uses, that residential uses are permitted in the commercial zone as part of a commercial cluster development only. This shall apply to cluster developments for single-family, tree-site built housing, manufactured housing, two-family, and multifamily. So the background on this is when residential use was permitted in the, by warrant article in the commercial zone, it was clearly intended to be as part of a commercial cluster only. The way it ended up appearing in the table of uses makes it look like single family, that all of these different things are allowed independently. And that was not the intent or the wording of the ordinance, so we're trying to straighten that out. They are allowed as part of a commercial cluster, but only as part of a commercial cluster. Questions?
Manufactured housing, that just means prefabs, not trailers, correct? Since trailers aren't allowed in town. Correct.
That is a really confusing definition too for everybody. We talk about it a lot.
We've spent about an hour.
That's a tricky one.
But it's how the state define things.
Okay, the state definition, our definition conflicts.
Uh,
We don't have,
Would it be, I don't want to say intelligible, could you put a footnote excluding trailer? So that would be,
our definition covers it.
okay,
The conflict is with state.
okay.
We can be more restrictive than the state.
Perfect.
And the trailer park issue is addressed as completely as it can be and still be within the law. Zoning law allows you to restrict things only up to a point. If you push beyond that point, then your no zoning is no longer valid and you can't defend it. So we're looking for a motion to indicate as footnote number 1 in the table of principal uses. I guess I'm making this motion. That residential uses are permitted in the commercial zone as part of commercial cluster development only, which shall apply to cluster developments for single-family, tree-site built housing, manufactured housing, two-family, and multifamily. And this is part of Article 2, Amendment 1.
Second.
Thank you. Further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All right, now we're getting to the definitions. And the first one is commercial solar field. Commercial solar field means not a for-profit single facility that generates electricity by means of a solar photovoltaic device that is directly connected to an electric distribution utility's distribution grid and is not a community solar facility, regardless of the operational capacity that the facility is designed for or capable of. Now, some of this language was reviewed by Community Power. Do you recall where this came from originally?
I want to say, I did kind of a web search and I was looking at a lot of industry type standards to start with. You get the technical jargon, and then I kind of said, okay, for profit, right? I have, in one of the other towns, they had an application where it was like community solar. So think, 25 lot subdivision, they have a solar panel for the whole community, that community, right? And they had an applicant that was really stretching it, and I'm like, well, how would you, differentiate that from, say, a large scale solar field like in Pittsfield, they've got a couple. And I think that means a for-profit single facility that generates, right? Like that's the point of that, as opposed to that other example. So it's kind of like industry standards on the technical, experiences of other towns for the, single facility for-profit piece. And don't forget to take the word field out.
Thank you. Other questions, comments?
I just have a clarifying question. So do we not allow a community solar field?
No, we do.
Okay.
We do. The town years ago decided not to regulate solar at homes, and then it got stretched to, at that time they were calling they had what was called group net metering.
Mm-hmm.
So a bunch of people could get together and put in a solar field that went through a meter to a pole down on Shoestring Road, but then it was credited to all people in the group that had signed up and funded the installation. Is my understanding of how that works.
If you go to page, even though this is referencing 12 and 13, if you go to page 31, they're going to be allowed in commercial and industrial zones.
I'm trying not to jump around so I don't make you guys mad again. I was just like thinking of your use case.
My reference, it was just how do you get clear, break from here's commercial, here's community, and then the commercial, it's all about that's literally all their primary objective is to self-exit.
I liked your definition. I know that there's a lot about cluster divisions, but I just wanted to make sure that they could do their own community solar. And I might get more support.
Thanks.
Would that disallow windmills?
This has nothing to do with windmills, it's solar, commercial
Just
solar. This is direct solar load. All right, so I think we're looking for a motion to approve Article 3, to amend Article 3. God, the articles line up. No, Article 3, Amendment 2, to amend Article 3. You want to do this motion, Rich?
You were halfway there.
Okay. I move that we adopt, that we recommend for town meeting, amendment, Article 3, amendment number 2, to amend Article 3 by adding a definition of commercial solar. And we struck the word field. Looking for a second.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Now we're doing a definition for data storage centers. Okay, I'm going to read the one we have on this paper. This, what we had proposed here. There was different, these got printed before the new one, and the board never made a decision about which definition they wanted. That's why we have two definitions here, and that's one thing the board has to do tonight, is decide what definition we want. So the first one is data storage center. A physical room, building, or facility that houses IT infrastructure for building, running, and delivering applications and services. It also stores and manages the data associated with those applications and services. And what happened, there was another line to this that said, as a primary use of the, right, because how many people have offices with data storage in them? I do, I'm sure, more or less, everybody has an office. You've got a lot of data storage.
It's on page 13.
It's on page 13?
Yeah. So all the wording is not on the landscape one, all the wording is in the, no, that's the proposal, that's the second proposal. Go to this one. Go to the second page, which is page 13. See data
That's
structure.
proposed.
Okay,
This one is to be debated, proposed later.
so here's version 1. A physical room, building, or facility that houses IT infrastructure for building, running, and delivering applications and services as a principal use of the land. It also stores and manages the data associated with those applications and services. A data storage center does not include the storage of data as a secondary or accessory use associated with another principal land use of the property. So that's the version 1, and here's the version 2. High technology, this comes from the state of Georgia, and one of our members did some research and came up with it.
So what,
Yes?
what determines principal use of the property?
Principal use of your home as a residence. The principal use of your home as a residence, even if you have a home business, it is still, the principal use is still a residence. If
This thing, what if I have a farm and that's the principal use, but I have a data storage facility on that?
Then the principal use of the resident of the property is the farm. There's not a data storage center. So that's there was some thought put into this about how to make it so that it doesn't include things that they don't intend it to. It's kind of like the solar field for profit. So here's this other definition. High technology data center means a facility, campus of facilities, or array of interconnected facilities in the state that is developed to power, cool, secure, and connect its own equipment or community equipment of high technology data centers. It seems to me this is, in Georgia, there are places where whole towns are getting taken over by data centers. This seems to be addressing something different than what we're trying to address. What do people feel? And you have some expertise.
Yeah, I do, a little bit, but let's not get too carried away with that. I'm requesting that the planning board remove from Article 2 to prohibit data storage centers in all districts, because this definition is somewhat, I wouldn't say inaccurate, but it says campus of facilities. I think the elementary school could actually be categorized under this definition, interconnected facilities, because they are interconnected with other
Primary
schools.
use of that is an educational school. It's not.
Either way, data centers, you have managed service data centers, you have co-location data centers, you have cloud data centers. I think more research needs to be done on this topic before the board moves forward with submitting this warrant article to the town. That is my recommendation.
Thank you.
I will say, I don't like this one.
You don't like this?
No, I don't think it's appropriate
Yeah,
use for Canterbury, and as someone who works in high tech, I think about like the amount of heat these things generate, the amount of power they consume, there's fires, all the, like.
Prohibiting them throughout the town completely at one point, why did, refresh me, I don't recall why we decided to allow them in the industrial zone. Do you have that?
You exclude completely communication velocity. In my opinion.
Can you do a maximum square footage? Or
So-
max building size, like not to exceed
You're
the
gonna get
size?
limited anyways by the size of the lot.
Yeah. So one thing generally about a definition, the definition should really drill down and define the thing, and then the actual regulation of that should come elsewhere. Right? So for example, if the town were to say, we don't want data storage centers anywhere, that's when the conversation initiated, you've got to define exactly what it is before you say it's not permitted. So I think that was kind of the intent here, was to get bigger that made the most sense. And I think that's where you're going with that. And you have to say, here's what it is, and then whatever. Exactly, yeah.
More research needs to be done on that before we move forward with this proposal. That's my recommendation to the board.
So the board's concern is to have something in place so that if it shows up on the horizon, it doesn't end up being something we can't have some input on.
I mean, I'd rather see a data center down at exit 18 than 36 houses, to be honest with you. My personal opinion.
That's where we're suggesting oddities in the commercial or
Yeah.
industrial zone. That's the only land in town for, I believe, saying.
So
Yeah, but this article says to prohibit data center storage in all districts.
Wait, I thought we allowed it.
Special
Remember?
exemption.
Okay, the special exception.
What are you getting prohibited in all districts? Where's that coming from? Where are you getting that prohibited in all districts?
This is something that was on the Canterbury, New Hampshire town website.
Is it in the document?
Article 2.
there was discussion of that, and it's possible that there was some document, some out-of-date
Old
document that had that on it. Anyhow, we're right now talking about a definition of a data center. So let's continue with that discussion. I think we have general, this one submitted from the state of Georgia is not appropriate for us. So that takes us back to the one that we were looking at.
If you go back to the table of uses, this document here, page 31, it will be a special exception in the industrial zone, not commercial. We're proposing it in the industrial zone.
So I'm going back to this definition, which is what is the item on the agenda here. A physical running, holding, building or facility that houses IT infrastructure for building, running, and delivering applications and services as a principal use of land. It also stores and manages the data associated with those applications and services. And that storage center does not include the storage of data as a secondary or accessory use associated with another principal use of the property. So,
Just a quick question here.
yeah.
Is there a certain amount of data that warrants? For instance, I'm going into about computers, I can generally turn mine on. But if I have 20 terabytes, which I assume is a lot of storage, at what point is that tiered to a storage unit? Does that make sense?
It's not, the way this definition is written, it's not about quantity, it's about just that is your principal business and service.
Its primary use for that piece of land is the storage.
It could be a data center.
That's what they're.
So that means if you have a proposal to put in a data center, it's way more than 20 terabytes.
That's what I was just wondering, what constitutes a data center? Is there, I'm just trying to put a.
Some of the background in this was proposed by another member on the board, and I will try to paraphrase what he is. I am not in support of this. I don't think it's gonna happen up here. The data centers are places like Google Cloud or Apple Cloud or the cloud when you send stuff. And there's a lot of these facilities that are popping up down in Virginia, Maryland, and they're very energy hungry. And they gobble up a lot of energy and they're very noisy. You can imagine a bunch of servers just click-clacking. I mean, and there's a need to air condition and cool the building, so you have a whole bunch of air conditioners on top of the building, and they're just noisy.
They're also overwhelming the power supply, the power grid, and so then they start putting in generators.
I don't think that they're gonna come here. New Hampshire is up there as far as our electricity rates. We have like the second or third highest energy rates in the country. I really don't see a company making money putting in a data center in New Hampshire. Although I've been told that they have popped up down in Nashua.
As technology changes, could be feasible, and they do know technology changes.
Overnight.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure if the data center was like a total home trailer, if we're talking like an Amazon warehouse. I don't have a concept of what Amazon
Those
warehouse.
pictures you see where they disappear into the distance with blinking lights on.
No.
Big.
All right, I see.
So we're looking for a motion to adopt this data storage center definition. So that would be Article 3, Amendment 2, to amend Article 3 definitions to include data storage center as written on page 13 and previously read. Does that work for you, Matt?
Yeah, can you just repeat it one more time, just to make sure the text is correct, please?
A physical room, building, or facility that houses IT infrastructure for building, running, and delivering applications and services as a principal use of land. It also stores and manages the data associated with those applications and services. A data storage center does not include the storage of data as a secondary or accessory use associated with another principal land use of the property.
Okay.
So you gotta put that whole second or third sentence in.
Yeah. That's the as-amended part, right? So we're looking for a second?
Second.
And more discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All right, now we're looking at commercial EV charging station. One or more charging units designed to charge electric vehicles for a fee at a site open to the general public. Questions? So like if, when that gas station opens up, I mean, they've got 3-phase power there, but they can put in a couple of EV charging. Further questions, discussion? Looking for a motion
Motion Article 3, Amendment number 2.
to amend Article 3.
To amend Article 3 definitions by adding the definition for commercial EV charging station. Be approved.
Second. Further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Article 4. Are you in favor of the adoption of amendment number 3 as proposed by the Canterbury Planning Board for the Town of Canterbury zoning ordinance as follows? To amend 18.3, this is on page 98, guys. 18.3, number 3A, in the following manner. A detached accessory dwelling unit shall not be constructed on a lot of less than 1.75 acres, excluding slopes over 15% and wetlands. We had some discussion about this at the meeting the other night. So we've had a lot of discussion about it over many years. Questions, issues, concerns?
Did we decide 15% to be consistent?
Yes.
Yes. From that, you gotta change it on our zoning
Okay.
ordinance, page 98. We didn't need to change that. It says 20% there.
Yes. I think I actually.
Is there a reason that you're using 15%? I'm just curious. It's not very steep at all.
You're right, it's not that steep, and I think we're thinking about revisiting that in 2026. Right now, what we're trying to do is 15% is mentioned in several other places in the ordinance.
Right.
So we're trying to make the ordinance consistent right now. And at 2026 town meeting, I will propose that we up it to a 20% slope.
Okay. I'll go even higher, actually.
Yeah, some people,
I mean,
well,
with now.
I shouldn't say 20%,
Yeah.
we'll discuss it and see
Yeah.
what people think. And that point you made the other night about having a walkout basement is my house has a walkout basement.
Plus landscape tight, and you're gonna put houses and stuff where there's, where they wouldn't normally go, so you gotta have a little bit more room, 15% way too flat.
Right, so that's a good point. Where were we?
I think that you read it.
Yeah, I read it.
I have a question, sir.
Yeah,
So we're changing it from 20 to 15, knowing we're gonna change it again next year. So we're doing it for consistency purposes this year, and then we'll update it everywhere next year?
no, there was no number here. This is new language.
Okay, all right,
It
so this
wasn't,
was not in that document.
And so the decision was if we're adding language to try to make it consistent.
Okay.
All right, so we're looking for a motion. I go for it this time. Article 4, Amendment number 3, to amend 18.3, number 3A, to read, a detached accessory dwelling unit shall not be constructed on a lot of less than 1.75 acres excluding slopes over 15% and wetlands. Second?
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Article 5, are you in favor of the adoption of amendment number 4 as proposed by the Canterbury Planning Board for the Town of Canterbury zoning ordinance as follows? To amend Article 6.9, this is your page 42, folks. Commercial cluster development, Section B, by indicating that the total number of lots or units shall be calculated in the same manner, and that acreage allotment required for any use shall not be less than the actual acreage of that use or lot, use/lot, plural. A zoning ordinance is never finished, it's never done. We're always responding to changes in the environment, if it's weather events, whether it's something like COVID, or changes in state law, or in this case, that when we adopted the ordinance that allowed when we adopted the commercial cluster ordinance, it wasn't clear about how the dimensional requirements would be applied. It wasn't totally clear. And whenever you have anything that isn't totally 100% clear, there is somebody who thinks that it should be interpreted in a different way. So what this is trying to clarify that an acre is an acre, and if you use 5 acres, then you've used 5 acres of your dimensional allotment. Questions, discussion?
So that last sentence that's in red, acreage allotment,
Yeah.
that's not in the wording isn't changed on page 42.
Thank you for pointing that out. Can you help us with that, Matt?
Yeah, so if you look at, under 6.9, commercial cluster development, B, general standards, I think the whole set of things we've got here, so what Greg was saying, where it says the total number of lots or units is one part that's being added here.
Right.
And the reason for that is what you have is, somebody goes out and they figure out their density, how many do I get, right? It should be implied, like Greg was saying, it should be implied that lots means, means units, right? Whether you're gonna do a subdivision or whatever, like that's your density calculation. Somebody will come up and say, oh yeah, but I'm just doing a single site plan with buildings on it, so they're not really lots, right? So, and that's what adding this 4 units does, is it provides that clarity to say, whatever the thing is you want.
Yeah, you can call it something different. It
Yeah.
still is what it
It
is.
still is what it is. It's the density is derived from, that process.
For the sake of simplicity, for the digestive person, would it be possible to put like your middle school example where you say 35-acre lot, this is this, so people can tangibly see the equation?
So, yeah, so elsewhere in the ordinance, it does do the, how you figure your density. But I think for voters, oftentimes they'll have like, the thing in the ordinance that you're acting on as, the legislative branch. But sometimes it's good to have an example on the side. Those are really good tools for people to look at and say, oh, this is what it's doing in practice. But sometimes when you put an example in the ordinance, people say, oh, it's just, like they focus in on that. It can actually be counterproductive, but absolutely, at town meeting, to have it for people to read it and say, oh, this is what you guys are doing, here's an example.
Just 100 acres and tags on the thing, get 20 units, where 37 acres, you get 37, so it's,
Yeah.
I think people, if they could physically read it, it'd be easier. to
Units or
digest.
lots, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That a good
Yeah.
place for us to put that would be in our regulations.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, in that instance, because that's, so
Because that's where you're looking, where a developer or a homeowner is looking to try to figure out what they need to do.
Right.
And that's good to have an example
It
there.
just gives a baseline, I think it simplifies some of those conversations and just takes them all out of the water.
yeah, the more you can do for clarity, the better. So
Okay, so
especially,
I'd like to back up a second because what Rich was pointing out here is that the last section there in red, acreage allotment required for any use shall not be less than the actual acreage of that use / lots. So this is in addition to what you were just talking about, the first part of this, about lots and units being calculated the same. But now we're talking about the acreage, how the acreage allotment is allocated to the different uses.
Okay.
So you see that on your sheet? You have this sheet?
Yep, I just copied it, so we're pasting that in, I would assume, in that same
General
paragraph.
standards and procedures,
Yep, and
6.9, section D, right?
yeah,
There, right after 6.6, 6.7.
that's what I was thinking, yep. Okay, got it.
Okay. So I will make a motion, Article 5, Amendment number 4, to amend Article 6.9, Section B, by indicating that the total number of lots or units shall be calculated in the same manner, and that acreage allotment required for any use shall not be less than the actual acreage of that use / lot, parentheses S, close parentheses. Looking for a second.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Article 6. Did I skip something? I did.
Yeah, the last two under Article 5.
Yep. To amend Article 6.4, Section 1, page 36, add item number 5. Wetlands and slopes more than 15% combined shall not count for more than 25%. And this is the number that the board needs to discuss. 25% of the undisturbed designated open space. So this is their commercial cluster development. They have to designate 50% to open space. So here's the issue. I've got 10 acres and I've got a 5-acre lake. 5 acres of that lake is 50%. 5 acres is 50%. So I think, but that 5 acre lake, nobody can develop on anyway. So why am I making a trade? Why is the town trading for no development on something you can't develop on? So that's why we're saying, and the same with steep slopes. So we're saying you can only have so much of your designated open area, wetland, or steep slopes. One version, a number of years ago, there was a version of our ordinance that had this listed at 20%. Matt suggested 25%. I was more, I was like in the 20% number myself. But
I think it should be lower.
So in any town you go to in the state, you're gonna see a cluster ordinance will designate a certain amount of that land in the open space. For the sake of math, because I don't do math, it's all that. So 50% of your 10-acre parcel is permanent open space, so that's 5 acres. Of that 5 acres, towns will often assign a percentage that has to be built, right? Like Greg said, you know, if you can't build on the lake, I mean, what good is it? But it actually comes to the other side where it's like, you know, you can have that 5 acres as wetlands, steep slopes, whatever the case may be. And you want to make sure that a portion of that is good land. So you're getting good land for the town in return. The question becomes, what is that number? I think that I've seen, I think 25 to 50 is the typical range. And the reason why you wanted to, you can't ask, it'd be unreasonable, let me rephrase that, it'd be unreasonable, like you could probably get challenged in court for this, to say we want all those 5 acres to be buildable land, like no steep slopes, no wetlands, because that's not practical. But then when you start sliding down the scale, it's like, well, what's the magic number to make it so that they're able to do the development, the town gets the good land in that open space? So I would say, if you're saying, so the way this is worded, it's wetlands and steep slopes combined shall not be more than, and then whatever, it's 10%, 25%, right? So it's kind of taking it from the other direction, which is fine, but I think to require, say, yeah, I think the range is probably, I think if you went lower than 25%, you may find developers start saying, hey, look, you can't give me open space that's that clean. Probably, you know what I mean? Like it's, you're gonna start to
get no takers, so you wouldn't be protecting any land.
So, yeah, you wouldn't, the ordinance wouldn't be used because you wouldn't be able to do that. I just like my take, right? Like it's,
Well, we are at cluster development that is worded, they have to leave 50% open.
Correct.
They get a bonus if they leave 75% open. I think this plays into giving that because it's unbuildable land, that if they give us the 50% of good land, and now they're going to throw the other 25% in their wetlands and steep slopes, now they get a bonus.
Oh, they're getting bonus for more than 5 acre open field.
And they can't, it's not buildable land anyway, so.
That was excluded from the bonus calculation. I thought.
No, there's another bonus. It's, the 50% is included.
Right.
But if they do 75% open land, they get a bonus.
But I believe the equation wetlands can't be included in that 75. I believe, I could be wrong, but I was looking.
But right here, we're saying that,
Finish your sentence, that's the end of that. I believe there's a clause to that where I can't take 100 acres, build on 25, and 25 acres of wetlands is 50% buildable. There's a cap on how much that bonus, that 75% can be wetlands.
I thought so too, and I searched through the ordinance and did word search and stuff, and I couldn't find that. I thought it might be in the older version. And I think it was listed that it couldn't be more than 20%.
Okay, there was a number, because when it came to the bonus allotments, you had to stay under a certain portion of that land to get that.
I agree. I searched the ordinance for it. I can. You find it, give me a phone call.
Yes.
And
I'm
so,
gonna take a look myself, hold on.
so this is pretty much trying to put that criteria back into the ordinance.
Okay.
Regarding the percentage, one thing I was thinking that might be applicable is what is the average percentage of wetland and steep slopes on a typical piece of land in Canterbury? Now, it does vary, it's very variable, certainly. But I was looking at some things and it seemed to be in the 15–20% range for most stuff. But then you start looking at include all the marshes and stuff, you've got to go. Yes, sir.
This might be getting into the weeds, but there's several different classifications for wetlands. Is there any way that you can open up parts? I forget what the classification is, but there's one that's more like a meadow, like you can walk in it. To exclude something like that, it's still open space, you can still use it, you can still recreate on it, but it's, to sacrifice that space as a developer, it's kind of a hit.
If it's a wetland, any kind of wetland you can't develop on it, it's the current, it's the law. Anyway, Matt, you were like.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
The trick is, so like Greg's saying, when I think the short answer is that it may take more tinkering with more stuff, but I think it's a good idea, right? Like a temporarily, so the way they delineate wetlands, right? That's what Greg's talking about. They use the Army Corps of Engineers wetland delineation model, and they go in and they just,
It's all species based.
Species.
If you have so many different soils and so many different species, it's designated as this, which the average eye wouldn't even think it's a wetland, it's just looking at a field.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I can't use that, but that's plenty flat, it's kind of unfair to the.
And the thing is, when the plan hits their table, and the same thing is true like with the state, right? It's like a binary thing. It's wetlands or it's not. That gradation of, just an area with a bunch of ferns,
Right.
that
So-
probably could be open space. But I think
You get into a lot of problems here. First off the world is set up to do the binary assessment. Is it wetland, is it not? So then you're going into a whole nother layer for the property owner or developer of wetland assessment and engineering and figuring it out. Also, as you said, it gets into other parts of the ordinance and stuff. So for us, if we're going to process something now for this year's town meeting, I think it needs to be a percentage base. And as you're talking about the parts of wetland that are actually mostly usable, and we're talking about how much wetland is normal in the lot in Canterbury. My feeling is somewhere 20–25% would be a reasonable.
And then
place to
work through
live.
it, and you could theoretically, like you're saying, work through that for a future town meeting, because I think that would be, so when you compare cluster ordinances across the state, it usually is that it's, buildable versus not, a certain percent of each, and then within that non-buildable side, it's steep and wet. But that level of gradation, I think that's a good idea.
It's just a thought, because I know just from the work that I do, sometimes it's like what they classify as wetland would blow your mind. When you're doing a driveway or something, you're like, there's no way that this is wetlands, but it trickles once a year, one time of the year, so they consider it a wetland, so.
Yeah, it's always that back end of stuff. Streams, like the same thing, right? Like, you have your fourth order streams, third order streams, then you get down to like the lower levels, it's like.
Seasonal runoff.
Yeah, so in the interest of moving us on here and having a symposium on wetland management,
Propose dropping that number down to 20. I want less, but I could live with 20. Then 25 just matches 50 nicely to equal 75, which would trip another trigger.
So I'm going to propose Article 5, Amendment number 4, to amend Article 6.4, Section 1, page 36, add item number 5, wetlands and slopes more than 15% combined shall not account for more than 20% of undisturbed designated open space. Looking for a second.
I'll second it.
Further discussion?
Just want to point out there's a typo. It says that, not then,
Thank you. Where is that?
right before the 25.
More that, more than.
than,
Thank you. Thank you. So, did we get a second?
Yes.
Yes, and so, no further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Next, to amend Article 6.9, this is on your page 43. Commercial cluster development, Section C, by adding a requirement that no commercial cluster development shall be more than 50% residential. Questions? Discussion?
How do you calculate that? Just out of curiosity, is it 1 unit for one house, pretty much?
Units are lots, they're interchangeable, so.
It's
In a commercial.
So
And
one-
it's difficult in a condominium situation where not necessarily a dwelling unit is a lot. So any dwelling unit counts. So if it's a two-family house, it's 2 units.
Should we, just throw, based on that, should we throw in here, 50% watts or units? Should we just actually say that in here? Do we need to, do you guys think? So that we know. 'Cause
I think
could
that's
also-
an excellent idea, because somebody will try to think that it's
Floor space
something
could be
wrong
enough.
with it. I think that's a good idea, Matt.
So how
All
would
right, so I'm going to make a motion here, Article 5, Amendment number 4. I'm sorry. Yep, that's right. To amend Article 6.9, Commercial Cluster Development, Section C, by adding a requirement that no commercial cluster development shall have more than 50% residential units or lots, whichever is greater. Whichever is greater, should we say?
Yeah, I think.
Right, because you have a two-family house on one lot.
Yeah.
We just have to coincide with the town definition of the unit, right?
Yes, that's we've been working on that, it's really
So
common.
if the town defines a unit as a single-family dwelling, you could have 3 units in one building, and it's still
Correct.
3 units.
Correct.
Okay.
And they can define it too in their regs, like their site plans, like their regs, they can put a definition in there to further clarify what the zoning is doing.
Actually, we did some of that, we need more of that, we have more of that to do. So I'm looking for a second on that motion. Second. Thank you, John. Further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Article 6. Are you in favor of the adoption of amendment number 5 as proposed by the Canterbury Planning Board for the Town of Canterbury zoning ordinance as follows? They're pages 34, 36, 40, 42. There's some others. These are non-substantive editing and formatting changes, including the following: correct misspelled words, to eliminate duplicate text, to change asterisks in the table of uses to numbered footnotes, to update references to the site plan regulations. This is probably the biggest one because there are 6 or 7 times that it shows up. We used to have site plan regulations and subdivision regulations. We reworked those regulations into one document, which we now call the Land Development Regulations. So we're just cleaning up the ordinance so that we reference the proper document. To update and correct any numbering or spacing issues. Any questions, discussion? Then I shall turn that into a motion.
Article 6, I motion Article 6, Amendment number 5, to make non-substantive editing and formatting changes as listed.
You good with that, Pat?
Yep.
Michelle, you're looking for a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ken. Further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Yes. You wanted to talk about batteries?
I'm sure you've already discussed it before. I was just wondering why it seems like it's tabled.
Because people were concerned about health and safety, and we didn't feel we had the time to get together enough information about, what does it take to put out a battery tire? How big are the battery things that people are installing? Do we need additional equipment and services? Is it toxic stuff coming off of the batteries when they burn? It seemed like too many questions for us to try to.
So when you say that, all of those things, does that mean batteries of any size, of any dwelling?
No, we're talking about commercial, because there are a number of places in town that already have total solar with battery backup or batteries.
Municipal use of batteries.
Municipal uses, you can take the film and throw it away if you're doing a municipal installation. You're not bound by of course, the select board and the different boards and committees are cognizant of what the town wants, but they are not technically bound by any of the regulations. Okay. In the planning regulations. Other questions, concerns before we wrap it up? Thank you guys all for coming. Appreciate your Matt, does the team have a second meeting? There are some minor changes here.
Yeah.
So they should probably be noticed again with the new version. But I also think it's a good, it's polite and appropriate for townspeople to have another chance to be here and voice their concerns and give their input.
Yep, I would agree.
So we're looking for a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn. Thank you, Rich. Second. Thank you. All those in favor?